right, why don't we get started? Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, great. My name is Randall Kaye. I'm the Chief Medical Officer of Longboard Pharmaceuticals. I think I have a pretty cool job because I'm basically responsible for all the research that occurs at the company and studying epilepsy. I always think my job is cool. My kids really don't think there's anything cool about me or anything that I do until I mention to them I'm presenting at Disneyland. But they just want to get tickets, so they thought that was more of the cool part. But what I was hoping to do today is talk to you a little bit about medication that we're working on developing, but more to help people understand a little bit more about being involved in research and what that means. The first two talks that we heard were on medicines that are actually currently out and available and in the marketplace. This is an early stage or mid-stage developmental drug, and hence we use the title of bexicaserin, A New Wave of Hope. And this is for patients with developmental and epileptic encephalopathies, also known as very rare and uncommon refractory epilepsies. Just a quick background on our company. Research is a long, slow slog. It takes a long time to come up with a molecule. The vision for the developmental programs that we had put together were backed on over 20 years of research in an area called GPCR research. So a certain type of an approach that we've taken. And we've also focused on trying to find a way where we can isolate the one target receptor that we think will help in terms of improving a patient's seizures, but not have off-target activities by interacting with other receptors that might cause adverse events or side effects. So this is my pretty little compound. We call it our baby. It looks something like that, at least if you were to do styrofoam balls and twigs to put them together. But that's pretty much what it looks like as a single molecule. And this is what it looks like when you animate it and you turn it into a blob. But what it actually does is it interacts with a very specific receptor. It's called 5-HT2C. And these receptors are thought to modulate some of the abnormal or hyper-excitability of neurons in an activated state during a seizure. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our global program, not so much to give you a sense of, gosh, this might be the perfect study for my child or for my loved one, but more to get you interested in what really happens when you get involved in research. There are lots of medications that are out there that we just heard about. There are more in development, but sometimes the only ways to get new medicines out there to be developed is sometimes families need to get involved in research. So a sort of theme I like to share with people is that research can be part of the treatment paradigm, and how you get involved in research can be involvement in a drug study, or it might be involved in a naturalistic study, or it might be filling out a survey. But anything that you can do as a family member to contribute is incredibly helpful as we go on this path. We have put together what we refer to as a comprehensive global phase 3 developmental program. So that means when these studies are done, we should be in a position to walk over to the FDA and say, we have data on the safety and efficacy of our medication. It's been studied around the world. We'll present that data and decisions will be made at U.S. regulatory authorities and other authorities across the globe on whether they feel the data from this is safe and effective. There are two studies. Our 301 OCEAN study is a very broad-based, inclusive study that includes any patient with a developmental and epileptic encephalopathy. And then Deep Sea, our 302 study, is just in patients with Dravet syndrome. The primary endpoint, the main thing that we study, is countable motor seizures, the seizures that you can see that have a discrete beginning and end. And we count the number of those over the course of an early time period, and we see if there's an impact and a decrease in those seizures. The age group is patients ages 2 and over, and we're looking at 80 sites, and these will be spread across the U.S. and Australia and Europe and some other potential regions. At the bottom of the slide, just mention that we just recently received breakthrough therapy designation. It's a pretty important aspect because it means that the FDA has said this is an important program. It's a program that has existing data that may truly differentiate from other medicines that are out there, and we're going to work with you, we're going to partner with you, we're going to make things maybe a little bit faster or easier. They won't change their criteria, still have to have a safe and effective medication, but it allows for some areas for some better efficiency. Who are the patients that may enter into the Deep Ocean study? So I mentioned a variety of patients with developmental and epileptic encephalopathies. We see two groups, the larger, broader group, and the groups of those patients that have LGS or Lennox-Gastaut. And then below here, I've written a list of what some of the criteria are for this study. And I've written the criteria for the Dravet study as well. It's more to give you a sense of when you're talking with your clinician, when you're talking about treatment options, maybe research being a part, they will go through this criteria with you. You'll find even sometimes your clinicians might reach out to you proactively and say, I have an interesting study, I want to tell you a little bit about it. These are the kind of things that they'll list up, but they'll already be looking at your background history and say, well, this is a patient I've been caring for with Lennox-Gastaut, and they had first symptoms before the age of 8. There are some typical EEG findings that we've seen, and they're still having seizures. Maybe this might be the kind of study to get them involved in. This is a very ugly schematic that I have to show, but I want to give you, and this is something that you also see when you get involved in a clinical trial. Don't get intimidated by it because it looks like it has a lot of steps and a lot of stuff. I'm going to give you a different take on it. In the screening period, when you're talking with your clinician, you get extra care, you get extra attention. Those 5 or 10 minute meetings that you're used to having for visits all of a sudden magically turn into a half an hour and sometimes an hour. We'll spend a lot of time. During the course of the study, initially there's a thing called randomization. And it's just done through an electronic database, and the database decides whether you're placed on placebo or the investigational product that is being studied. It's captured in this instance. Patients will then go through a slow titration every week, a little bit more, to see how well you're tolerating to get up to a certain maximum dose. And some of you are just wondering, like, wait a minute, my child might be getting placebo. But it's the only way to determine at the end of the study whether it's safe, like placebo, how it compares to other medications that are out there, and importantly, is it efficacious? So as a drug sponsor, we have to run these placebo-controlled studies. And then all the way on the far right where it says Deep Ocean Label Extension Study, every patient when they complete this 3-month study, they're given the option of definitively receiving the real thing. So it's a bit of a 3-month pause. The good news is you can still use your rescue medications during this time period, and we're looking at layering medicines on top of what you're already on. After you get through the 3-week titration period, you go into maintenance. You just stay on the medicine for 3 months, and then I described to you what happens at the end if patients want to opt into the open label extension study. This is just a list of primary and key secondary endpoints. And you'll notice the endpoints seem very focused on seizures. And when you study medication for refractory seizures, and you're trying to get approved from a safety and efficacy standpoint, that's where we have to focus the most on in our discussions with FDA. So we'll list secondary endpoints of safety and secondary endpoints of efficacy. But if you are interested in a clinical study, sit down and talk with your provider and learn about the other things being studied. I know seizures are very, very important, but in some families, the seizures are manageable. And so you might be looking for other outcomes, like are they not going to be as sleepy? Are they going to be less, fatigued? Is my child going to sleep better at night? Am I going to sleep better at night? Are there quality of life improvements? And what about their ability to grow and develop cognitively? Those are the endpoints that I didn't put on here, but those are the ones you should probably ask a little bit about. This is the schematic diagram for the Dravet study. I only put it up here to tell you that most clinical trials in epilepsy are very formulaic. They look very, very similar. Other than changing the colors here, there's nothing else that's really different. It's the same medicine. It's very similar exclusion criteria. It's the same flow. There's an up-titration period. And every study these days that's run in epilepsy that is a placebo-controlled study is always followed on with an open-label extension study. Usually those go for another year. Sometimes depending on what the stage is in the drug's development, and if it's still not on the market, many companies, most sponsors will continue that open label extension period for a longer period of time. Yeah, that's just different colors. Okay, so if you want to learn more information, you can go on this really confusing website there that says Deep DS Study, but I'm really confused by it. I'm going to keep it up there for a minute. Or you can bother Sophia, where's she hiding? There's Sophia. You can bother Sophia, and she can tell you more about our upcoming studies. Both of the two that I described just started. Literally, one just started about a week ago, and the other one started about a month ago. We're moving towards activating all the sites across the U.S. By the end of the year, Australia. Early next year, Europe and other regions. But I think the best way to learn more is stop by our table or booth, and we can at least get you informed on where some of the sites are and tell you a little bit more. So just to close with that theme, as you're thinking about your child or your loved one, think about research as maybe part of that treatment paradigm. And if not this study, see what study might work. We need more knowledge, we need more information, or we won't get the next medications of the future. Thanks for listening. I think we have time for questions if anyone wants to ask.
I think you're 17 minutes.
I have 17 more minutes.
Yeah.
You can ask random questions too, like what's my favorite ride at Disney?
What is your favorite ride at Disney?
Thank you. Space Mountain.
That's the right answer. I think those are real questions.
Like, I would dig it onto it, and to learn more about it, you just go to deepdsstudy.com, or do you need to go to your doctor to have it?
To learn a little bit more about the study, go onto the website and talk to your physician. I would do both, but the deep study will give you a little bit of information, and it might look like, oh, this is really great, this is helpful, I get some good insights. It will also let you know where are the sites that are available and enrolling. So I do both.
Thank you.
It's kind of hard to hear you. All right. Well, thank you very much.